very stable. If you look at the price of oil 10 years ago, it hasn't moved in gold, but it's gone up over 300% in dollars. What's happening is the value of the dollar is going down. Our dollar was worth once 1/20th of an ounce of gold. Today it's worth 1/900th of an ounce of gold, and it looks like it's going to get a lot worse. So this is very serious business, not only because the foreign policy has blowback consequences, and that is a problem that affects our national security, but it also has the consequence of having very severe disruption to our fiscal policy and our financial situation here at home. But then on top of that, what has been happening to our civil liberties, our rights of privacy and our freedom here? We need to reverse that. Legislation passed after 9/11 was the Patriot Act, and you do know that I voted against the Patriot Act. Now, the Patriot Act, it came up, and they quickly had to do something. It was unreadable because it wasn't available, but the members of Congress feel, oh, we have to do something that's called the Patriot Act. Don't you know? How can you vote against the Patriot Act? But that whole trend has continued. So it's sort of like gun control. Instead of taking guns away from the criminals, they want to register the guns of the law-abiding citizens. Now we've had this terrible episode with these terrorist attacks, but instead of being concerned about our enemies and why they come to do this, what they are doing is registering the American people. And what we don't need is more registering of the American people. We don't need a national ID card. The other day that they were going to take the national ID card and not impose it and make it go into effect for a few more years. Except there's a loophole there. They said on May 1st, though, you can't travel without it. You know, you can't get on an airplane and you can't get in the federal building. So it's forcing the states who are trying to resist this to use it anyway. But even our passports, we can't go even across the border to Canada and come back unless we have a passport. So they're watching every move, they watch every financial transaction, every medical transaction, everything, and they have access to our mail, our email. They can get warrantless searches. They've repealed posse comitatus as well as the Insurrection Act. We no longer have protection of habeas corpus. This is serious business. Because unfortunately today we're told that the war on terrorism is perpetual. So we need to stand up and defend our liberties, and the best way to do that is read and understand and defend our Constitution. People to Washington, D.C. that haven't read and understood and are really willing to defend the Constitution. It's a unique document. It was designed not to restrain the people. It was designed specifically to restrain the government. It has been reversed. It's been used and distorted, and it restrains the people, yet there's no restraint on the government. For instance, your privacy is supposed to be protected under the Fourth Amendment. But what has happened? The secrecy of government is worse than ever. And then if they get caught at something, they destroy the records. So we do need a true modern revolution in this country. We need not have a violent revolution because we still have enough freedoms left to fight this battle the way we're doing it right now. But what we would like to do is just restore the concept of the original revolution. I mean, this is what's happened. We have drifted so far from it that in the last 100 years or so, we've essentially forgotten about it. You know, when I brought up the Constitution when we were talking about going to war and I insisted that we have a declaration and they didn't want to mess with that, they told me flat out, they used the word frivolous, what I was talking about. Anachronistic. how little respect they have. And it's not the executive branch, it's not just this executive branch or this Congress, but systematically over these many, many decades, the courts, the legislative branch, and the executive branch have had so little respect. But it's a consequence of a lack of a teaching that we've had in our schools.
Yeah!
Because we've been told by many of our schools that the Constitution has to be flexible and modern and it has to adapt to the times. Well, you know, the founders made it an appropriate way to change things if we had to. And that's to amend it, not ignore it. Ignore it is the worst thing you can do. We have forgotten also what the concept of national sovereignty means. We really want the sovereignty of the individual, and that's what we really want, the restoration of the right to our life and the right to our liberty and the right to keep the fruits of our labor. That's what we really want. But sovereignty in the national sense is still something that we should struggle for and fight for. But one reason why I think they have not protected the borders is I think that too often the leaders in both parties have been determined that we're going to work toward a North American Union, which we do not need that, and we certainly don't need this superhighway that's going to confiscate millions of acres of land under eminent domain. So we have literally done the things that we shouldn't do and do the things that we don't do the things we should do at all. We should be protecting our borders, protecting our privacy, and doing these many things. Our government is supposed to protect our property rights, but what do? We don't have property rights. We don't own our property. All we do is pay rent on it.
Right.
Property, you got to get permits, and this is not only the federal government, all the government levels. They tell you what you can do and can't do, and endlessly. And then if they want to use it for something else, they come and take it away from us through eminent domain. So this is a lack of respect for the private property, which is really the bedrock of what a free market system is all about. The other basic principle that we should be protecting is that of private contracts. Contracts, agreements between two people, whether they're social or economic, they shouldn't be separate. Social contracts and agreements and associations should be voluntary. As long as nobody's hurting anybody, we can't be telling people what they can do with their lives and how to act. We should be open, pick their own religions, pick their own social values. And yet today, in economics, everything we do, you know, we're told who we can hire, who we can fire, how much we can pay, all the regulations. And when the voluntary contracts come in, and for instance, right now they claim, well, there's this housing bubble's collapsed, so what we have to do is come in and renegotiate the contracts and say, well, if you happen to hold the mortgage, well, somebody can't pay, well, the government's going to come in and say, well, he doesn't have to pay you anymore because, you know, he's having a bad time.